Welcome back to week number 4 of the book of Psalms. So far, we have sought God for wisdom. When we needed direction, we know we can come to Him, and we give Him praise for His answer. And then we learned how to come before God with our praise and thanksgiving for what He has done and who He is. And last week may have been the toughest one, where we learned to come before God with our struggles. Sometimes our complaints, our frustrations, even maybe anger that we have. Learning how to come before God and share everything that's on our heart. Well, today we're going to go to a different type of psalm called the Royal Psalms. Now, the Royal Psalms have two different aspects to them. One could be that they are written to talk about a current king, maybe for his blessing, for him to follow God, for him to honor God with what he does and how he leads. It could have been about a specific king. And for us today, maybe that looks like a prayer that we would say in church for our president or our elected officials, that we're praying that they would honor God and follow God with everything they do and say. There's another aspect to a royal psalm, and that is when it points to the Messiah, the true King of Kings. Not an earthly king, but the King of Kings in the line of David. And that actually comes in Psalm chapter 2. So I would like to read through Psalm chapter 2 with you today. You may find that this is familiar. In the book of Acts, in Peter's first message, he uses Psalm chapter 2 to declare Jesus as the Messiah. It says, "Why do the nations rage and the peoples plot in vain? The kings of the earth set themselves and the rulers take counsel together against the Lord and against His anointed, saying." Here you have the early king, the kings of this world. They are trying to come against God and against His anointed one. The early Jewish leaders, when Jesus was on earth, they were the ones shouting, "Crucify, crucify." And then even after He rose, when the disciples were giving their testimony about Him, they were trying to hush the disciples. They were not following the anointed one. They were the kings of the earth coming against Him. Well, in verse 4 it says, "He who sits in heaven, in the heavens, laughs. The Lord holds them in derision. Then He will speak to them in His wrath and terrify them in His fury, saying, As for me, I have set my king on Zion, my holy hill." In other words, God laughs when they think that they can defeat Him or change His plan. His king will be on the throne. And we see that in Jesus. We see that in Matthew, that He sits on the throne, that He holds all power and authority over heaven and earth. He is the King of Kings. In verse 7, it says, "I will tell of the decree. The Lord said to me, You are my son. Today I have begotten you." Sounds familiar, John 3:16, my one and only son. "Ask of me, and I will make the nations your heritage, and the ends of the earth your possession. You shall break them with a rod of iron, and dash them in pieces like a potter's vessel. Now therefore, O kings, be wise. Be warned, O rulers of the earth. Serve the Lord with fear, and rejoice with trembling. Kiss the Son, lest He be angry and you perish in the way, for His wrath is quickly kindled. Blessed are all who take refuge in Him." As you read this psalm as a psalm about the Messiah, the King of Kings, truly we are blessed as we take refuge in Him. And just imagine, this was written 1,000 years before the Messiah came. So for 1,000 years, the Jewish people were singing this psalm about the Messiah. They were declaring these aspects of who He was. Another royal psalm is Psalm 29, and I'd like to point out just a few verses at the end of this chapter, verses 10 and 11. The Lord sits enthroned over the flood. The Lord sits enthroned as king forever. May the Lord give strength to his people. May the Lord bless his people with peace. Again, this psalm is not talking about an earthly king. It's not talking about anyone who could reign on a throne forever. We couldn't give peace to anyone. Only Jesus can do that. So again, in Psalm 29, the psalmist is declaring the Messiah, the King of Kings, who would not come for another 1,000 years. And yet, this would be a song that the Jewish people would sing over and over again. They were looking forward to the Messiah. And these are the royal psalms. And it makes me wonder, how do we come before God declaring his royalty, seeing him as the King of Kings? Like I said earlier, yes, we do come before God in prayer, and we ask that he would guide our political leaders. We ask that our president, our governor, those in other positions, that they would be faithful to God and that they would lead in that way. But how often do we come and praise to God and sing to him and declare his kingship? There are some praise songs that I think of. One is King of Kings, right? A song that declares salvation is through Jesus alone and gives all authority to him. And so as we sing that, we are singing a royal song declaring his kingship. And so as you come before him, declare who he is. Declare that he is God. Declare that he is the king, that he sits on the throne forever, that he is the one who gives peace. We too can come in prayer and praise, declaring the kingship of Jesus. May we learn to do that this week as we seek him as King.